Imagine Earth as a pressure cooker, rocks melting, oceans boiling, asteroids bigger than cities slamming down every few days. And in this chaos, the very first living thing appears. How? That's the mystery we're solving today. 4 billion years ago. That's so long ago if Earth's history was a 24-hour clock. Humans showed up less than 2 minutes before midnight. We're going back to that violent alien world to find life's beginning. Not dinosaurs, not fish. Just the first tiny specks that started everything. How did non-living chemicals suddenly become alive? Scientists have been fighting over this for decades. Let's see what clues we've dug up. Here's the problem. Earth back then was basically a nightmare planet. Think about the worst place you can imagine. Multiply that by 1,000. That was early Earth. The ground was mostly lava, the air was toxic, no oxygen at all. Just poison gases like methane and ammonia. And it was hot. Surface temperatures could melt lead. Not exactly a nice place for a picnic. But the real troublemaker was space. Back then, the solar system was like a cosmic shooting gallery. Giant rocks kept smashing into Earth. We're talking impacts so big they vaporized oceans and turned entire continents into molten goo. One famous theory says a Mars-sized planet actually crashed into Earth, and the debris formed our moon. That's how violent things were. So the big question is, how could anything start living in this mess? Life needs certain things. It needs a way to store information like DNA. It needs a way to build parts like proteins. It needs energy to run. It needs a container to hold it all together like a cell. And all these pieces have to work together perfectly. But in early Earth, everything was getting destroyed constantly. Any tiny living thing trying to get started would have been fried by lava, crushed by an asteroid, or dissolved in acid water. It's like trying to build a delicate watch inside a running jet engine. Impossible, right? Yet somehow it happened. That's the puzzle. How did life beat the odds and appear in the most hostile environment possible? Scientists have 3 main ideas about this. Let's look at each one. Idea 1, the chemical soup. Picture the early oceans, not blue like today, more like thick brown soup, hot, steaming, full of chemicals, bubbling up from underwater volcanoes. This soup had all the ingredients for life. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, just floating around, bumping into each other. Then energy hits. Maybe lightning strikes the water, or maybe ultraviolet light from the sun, which was stronger back then because there was no ozone layer. This energy zaps the chemicals, making them stick together in new ways. Simple molecules become more complex, like Lego bricks snapping together to build something bigger. In 1953, 2 scientists named Stanley Miller and Harold Urey tried this in a lab. They mixed gases they thought were in Earth's early atmosphere. Then they zapped it with electricity like lightning. After a week, the liquid turned dark brown. When they checked, they found amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. It was huge news. It showed life's parts could form naturally. But later, scientists realized they might have used the wrong gas mix. Earth's early air was probably mostly carbon dioxide and nitrogen, not what Miller and Urey used. When they tried again with the correct gases, they got way fewer amino acids, sometimes none at all. So maybe the soup theory needs fixing. But the basic idea, chemicals plus energy equals life parts, still makes sense. Idea 2, the RNA world. Okay, this one gets a little weird, but stay with me. Today, life runs on DNA. DNA holds the instructions. Proteins do the work. But proteins can't make themselves. DNA can't make itself without proteins. It's a chicken and egg problem. Which came first? RNA might be the answer. RNA is like DNA's simpler cousin. It can hold instructions like DNA, but it can also do jobs like proteins, such as speeding up chemical reactions. So maybe RNA came first. It could store information and do work. A molecular multi-tool. Scientists call this the RNA world. Imagine early Earth covered in tiny RNA molecules floating around. Some could copy themselves, others could help build more RNA. Mistakes happened during copying. Most mistakes were bad. But sometimes a mistake made the RNA better at copying or surviving. Those better RNAs took over. Over millions of years, they got more complex. Eventually, they invented DNA and proteins to do specialized jobs. Then they built cells to protect themselves. Presto. Life. But here's the catch. RNA is fragile. It breaks down easily in water. And early Earth had lots of water. So how did RNA survive long enough to get good at copying? Maybe it stuck to clay minerals which protected it, or maybe it formed in icy ponds that froze and thawed, giving it time to evolve. We're not sure yet. But in labs, scientists have made RNA that copies itself without help. Deep under the ocean, there are cracks in the seafloor called hydrothermal vents. Superheated water, like 400 degrees Celsius hot, shoots out full of minerals, so it's possible. Idea 3. Underwater geysers. This is my favorite one. The water is black with chemicals. Around these vents, entire ecosystems exist today. Giant tube worms, weird shrimp, bacteria that eat chemicals instead of sunlight. Some scientists think life began here. Why? First, vents are protected. Surface Earth was getting pounded by asteroids and radiation, but deep underwater, it's calm. Safe. Second, vents have energy. The hot water mixing with cold ocean water creates a natural battery. Chemical reactions happen that could power life. Third, vents have minerals. Tiny pores in the rocks could act like natural test tubes, concentrating chemicals so they react together. Imagine simple molecules getting trapped in these rock pores. The heat and minerals help them link up into chains. Maybe they form something like RNA. Or maybe they make simple bubbles that act like primitive cells. Over time, these bubbles get better at keeping the right chemicals inside. They start copying themselves. They evolve. Eventually, they crawl out of the rocks and float free as the first living cells. In 2017, scientists found something amazing. They recreated vent conditions in a lab. They put simple chemicals in water with minerals like those found near vents. They heated it up. Within days, the chemicals formed cell-like bubbles. These bubbles could grow, divide, and even maintain a difference between inside and outside, just like real cells. It's not life yet, but it's shockingly close. What did the first life look like? Whatever started life, it wasn't impressive. Picture a tiny blob, smaller than a grain of sand. No eyes, no mouth, no brain. Just a bag holding some chemicals. Probably looked like modern bacteria. Simple, tough, able to copy itself. It lived in water, probably hot water, maybe near vents or in hot springs. It didn't breathe oxygen. There wasn't any. Instead, it ate chemicals around it, like iron or sulfur. It got energy from chemical reactions, not sunlight. How do we know? From rocks. Really, really old rocks. In Greenland, scientists found rocks 3.7 billion years old. Inside, they found graphite, a form of carbon. The carbon had a special fingerprint that only living things make. In Australia, they found tiny tubes in 3.5 billion-year-old rocks that look exactly like fossil bacteria. And in Canada, they found red mineral crystals that seem to have been shaped by ancient microbes. The oldest possible evidence is from 4.3 billion-year-old zircon crystals in Australia. Inside, scientists found graphite with that lifelike carbon fingerprint. But some people argue it could be contamination. Not everyone agrees. The big twist. Life might have died and restarted. Here's something wild. Earth kept getting smashed by asteroids until about 3.9 billion years ago. One impact was so huge it vaporized the entire ocean. If life started before that, it probably got wiped out completely. So life might have begun multiple times. Started, got destroyed, started again, got destroyed again. Like hitting reset on a video game over and over. Finally, after the worst impact stopped, life began one last time. And that time, it stuck. That's the ancestor of everything alive today. In 2020, scientists found something that blew everyone's mind. In Western Australia, they studied rocks from 3.5 billion years ago. These rocks were once part of ancient hydrothermal vents. Inside, they found microscopic fossils, but not just shapes, actual chemical proof of how these microbes lived. The fossils showed two types of microbes. One type ate dead organic matter. The other type did something incredible. It used sunlight to make food. That's photosynthesis, the same process plants use today. But this was 3.5 billion years ago. Way earlier than anyone thought possible. Here's why this discovery is huge. First, it means life evolved incredibly fast. Earth formed 4.5 billion years ago. By 4.3 billion years ago, it might have had life. By 3.5 billion years ago, life was already doing complex things like photosynthesis. That's like learning to crawl, then walk, then run a marathon in just a few years. Evolution usually takes millions of years for big changes. This was warp speed. Second, it shows life adapted to different environments quickly. The microbes in these rocks lived in shallow water, not deep vents. That means life crawled out of its protective vents and dared to live where sunlight could reach. Risky. because UV radiation was deadly back then, but the payoff was huge: free energy from the sun. Third, these microbes were already part of an ecosystem. Some ate waste, others made food from sunlight. They were working together. That's not just life, that's a community. A tiny, microscopic city. This discovery suggests that once life started, it exploded. It spread everywhere. It invented new ways to survive. It changed the planet itself. Because when microbes started doing photosynthesis, they started pumping oxygen into the air. At first, that oxygen was poison to most life. But some microbes evolved to breathe it. That set the stage for animals like us who need oxygen to live. So in those Australian rocks, we're not just seeing fossils. We're seeing the moment life began to transform Earth from a hostile alien world into the planet we know today. The first breath of oxygen, the first step toward complex life, all locked in stone for 3.5 billion years. So how did life begin 4 billion years ago? We still don't know for sure, but we've got strong clues. Maybe it started in a chemical soup zapped by lightning. Maybe RNA molecules learned to copy themselves. Maybe it bubbled up in underwater geysers. Probably it was a mix of all these. What we do know is this: life appeared when Earth was young and violent. It started simple, just tiny blobs copying themselves. But it learned fast. Within 1 billion years, it had conquered the oceans. It invented photosynthesis. It began changing the air we breathe. The first life was nothing like us. But without those tough little microbes surviving hell on Earth, we wouldn't be here. Every tree, every bug, every whale, every person, all descended from that first spark of life in the chaos. Finding evidence is like detective work with most clues destroyed, but each new fossil, each experiment gets us closer. And maybe one day we'll solve the biggest mystery of all: how dead chemistry became living biology, how Earth went from a rock in space to a planet teeming with life. If you are interested, this kind of videos, don't hesitate to follow, and for support you can subscribe. Thanks for watching.